talk, I explained that I don't do this very often. So if I have a panic attack, I hand my papers to someone else to read. I have written them out. The main thing is, can you hear me? Microphone, okay. A couple of thoughts came to mind when I was preparing this. The first is that I spent 30 years in the operating room with Ken, and not all the time, but the whole thing would be complete if I couldn't kind of pull things together. So how we got to that place in the first place. Second thought I had is, I know one aspect of Ken, this has already been referred to today. I know one part of it, but there's a whole lot to him that I have only gotten a glimpse of, and probably some that I'm totally unaware of. He was a complex man. He got a lot of friends, he got a lot of varied backgrounds, and diverse interests. I'm not sure any one person knew the complete Ken. Carolyn knows him best, but there's a lot to him. So I'm going to try to put both of those thoughts together with a little bit of a background and a lot of speculation. He grew up in the western foothills of Northern California, the Sierra Nevadas. Did undergraduate college at UC Davis, moved him a little ways west, and his residency, his medical school and residency at UC San Francisco moved him a little further west. So what's next up to the west? It's Hawaii. So I don't think that he was a slave to the compass in coming here. I think it has probably more to do with his love of the outdoors. His early life, he spent water and snow skiing, depending on the season. Fishing. I don't know if he was ever a hunter, but he was a rock climber. We saw some videos of his rock climbing there a minute ago. So he came to Honolulu and joined the Honolulu medical group. The medical group was a hub of the early Honolulu Marathon, with both Jack Scaff and Jerry Prentice being on the board of directors. And new, young, athletic doctor coming to the group, he became in charge of invited runners. So the short answer to how we got together was Honolulu Marathon. He also took up a brand new water sport, windsurfing, which he later got me addicted to. So there was a reason for his journey. As a third and fourth year medical student, I did electives at the medical group with him, with other people as well, and spent a couple of weeks in outpatient orthopedics with him. And normally I would attempt to do his voice, but I have been under the weather with a cold lately, so I can't probably do it very well. But he, at the end of the rotation, says, "Duncan, I think maybe you should try something else." So I did. I went on to the mainland and kept up with him basically because every year we'd come back and run the marathon, see each other. He was still in charge of invited runners for a while. The rules at that time for amateur athletes were that they really couldn't give us anything. But one day, after the race, he came up to me and said, "Duncan, here." He handed me 2 quarters. He said, "Bus fare from Paibo." I think someone else has mentioned his wry sense of humor. So. But after all these years in the mainland, I came back with a new occupation. I was an anesthesiologist, so the 2 of us got together on a regular basis, and that started a 30-plus year association where I did most of the anesthesia for his cases. I don't know how many people in this room have been his patients, but it's a lot of patients over the years. He started at his original place of employment, the Honolulu Medical Group, and then subsequently we worked together for years at Surgicare, which was in the rehab hospital today. But finally we ended up at Queens doing all of this inpatient and outpatient surgery together. So we spent a lot of hours together, closed in the operating room, accompanied only by a sleeping, hopefully, patient and some very busy nurses. Just kind of off script here, the reason for all those moves to different places, there was a sort of an exodus of surgeons from the medical group at one point. And he ended up working in Surgicare, happy there for a while, but he told me never going back in that building anymore. Well, Surgicare got bought by another big mainland group. And where did they rebuild? In the Honolulu Medical Group building. So they had I thought he said, you're never going to set foot in here again. And he said just 2 words, free food. So, orthopedic surgery was where I knew him. That was his means of earning a living, but I wasn't defined him by any means. He loved his work, and he was very good at it. Working with him was always a pleasure. It was fun, and it was never stressful. And believe me, anesthesiologists do not like excitement. He was functional, efficient, and invariably pleasant in the OR, dedicated to his practice. But it was also just something they did to enable him to pursue some of the things you saw photos of just a few minutes ago. So it was there in the operating room, just talking casually, that I learned most about his other interests. And in writing these notes, I realized that I can't remember ever being called into the operating room at night to do any of his patients. Maybe Clifford Lau can help me with this, but it seems like he had very good control of his surgical practice if he never did night work. I got to know him through those conversations, and he also spent a lot of time emailing me. He'd send me photos of his expeditions and articles that actually were often forwarded from others of his friends. And there was a lot of different people with many different interests that he shared these things with me. We didn't meet a lot outside of the OR or his office. We did, of course, take turns providing care for each other because I had an Achilles tendon and he had a bicycle, which he had a habit of running into larger, more sturdy objects. We did a few cases together. One place I did see him regularly was at the marathon. And in the early years, before I quit running, I recall one year, he was no longer in the Marathon Association. I passed him as he was sitting on the curb near his home, which is about 2 miles from the finish line. He reached into a cooler and went by, pulled out a nice cold beer, he popped it open, looked me in the eyes, and then took a big sip. He did have a wry sense of humor, his nature. But he showed up later at the finish line after I'd run, still carrying the cooler. He was very kind also. And it's through photos that I saw an awful lot of his life outside of the operating room. So you saw a couple of pictures of him climbing El Capitan in Yosemite. That was a 1-week trip up 3,000 feet of vertical granite. Also a couple of pictures on that of climbing in Patagonia, which he returned with frostbitten toes. Bike trips in Norway and elsewhere, fly fishing everywhere. He also did a lot of heli-skiing, many, many vertical miles of skiing and snow powder. I didn't see any photos of that, nor did I see any photos of the reconstruction of this Porsche. He did that twice, which is a whole other story. He did it all himself. So, kind of in conclusion, life changes, and I saw a lot of photos during those times. And he had to give things up as he went. And I think the mountaineering was the first. But as the photos changed, suddenly now there were new photos. There were photos of Carol, as he was initially, and then photos of the twins as babies, and then growing up, and he was immensely proud of them. So his interest at that point became his family, which he embraced fully.